Welcome back, everybody. We're on pickups again. But first of all, I've got a couple of thank yous to issue. As you can see from the title, free retro. And indeed it was. Because I had a very generous gift off the legend Stu, Ninjabearhug. It's been a couple of 3 weeks now, I think. Time goes that fast. Anyway, I'd made a comment on one of his videos about something he'd picked up. And it was one that had eluded me. And, you know, thought no more of it. But then he contacted me to say he'd upgraded his copy. If I wasn't too worried about condition, he was willing to send this on to me. You know, super generous, really appreciative. And it's a 2600 game. And to be honest, I only collect cart only primarily. I've got a few boxes, but primarily I'm a cart only 2600 collector. Because I just want to play and have the experience. I've got no nostalgia for them. I haven't got the space, so, you know, I don't worry too much about the condition as long as they work. And anyway, he sent me this one. Beautiful pink label into the bargain. Which is an Activision, but it's one of these Australian sort of multi-cart style games, what come in the awesome clamshells. I was so close to going down that rabbit hole after Stu started showing them, because they look mega. I've resisted as yet. Like I say, I don't collect 2600 boxed really. So anyway, he'd upgraded his copy because, as you can see, it's got some label damage. Doesn't worry me. I'm more than grateful, so cheers, Stu. You're a legend. He also threw in a couple of awesome badges, which I've added to my sort of sticker and badge collection. If I remember, I'll stick up a picture so you can see what I'm talking about. But a couple of awesome Batman badges, which I think they look like they were possibly launched with Batman Returns when it came in that big. Is that the one that come in the big box set from Woolworths? They look like them. I don't know. I'm not no expert on that. Anyway, yes, the game in question, as you can see, it's got 3 on it. Ghostbusters Tennis, but it's Plaque Attack that I made reference to in Stu's video. Activision, by far and away, the best quality games on the 2600 in my opinion. There are other good games, don't get me wrong, but the hit rate from Activision is sensational. But Plaque Attack is one that I've never managed to track down. So I'm delighted to have that. Because it's kind of it's kind of a shooter based in somebody's mouth, and you're basically shooting the plaque off the teeth. I've not actually got round to trying that yet, unfortunately. Just no time. But nevertheless, big thanks to Stu. Awesome. I'm chuffed with it. Right, then we've got another thanks. And this kind of falls into the free retro category as well, really, because, as you know, Hayden, Subliminalvcr, legend in the Xbox modding community, and he'd done me my amazing pink Xbox. Then 2 or 3 weeks, and he's also done Steve a wicked red one, and he's done Glenn an amazing sort of wood effect one. I mean, the man, you know, talented. Anyway, a few weeks after he'd done my pink Xbox, I went to try one of my other Xboxes, which I use in my Outrun 2 arcade cab build, and it decided to stop working. I had this sort of fault code displayed, contacted Hayden if he could sort of, you know, help out in any way. Legend that he is, he offered to look at it for me, which he has done, sorted it out. So I've now got my arcade machine Xbox back up and running thanks to Hayden. Again, legend, mate. Thank you very much. But not only has he got it working for me again, he's also sort of modified it as well. So he's put on some games onto the hard drive, because it was an existing modified Xbox. with coin-ops on, which is, you know, was already great. But Hayden's made it better because there was space on the hard drive, and he offered to fill it up with me, fill it up for me with basically any games I wanted. So I've primarily had the Sega stuff put on it. He's put both versions of Outrun 2 on it, so I now no longer need the disc to play the game in my arcade cab, that's brilliant in itself. But he's also, obviously, he's put these games on I wanted. He's put Xbox Live arcade games on it as well. I never had really much to do with that back in the day. But there's some good looking titles on there. But the best thing of all about it is I've always been curious about Spike Out. It's a game I never got round to buying for the Xbox, and it's now like what I consider mad money for an Xbox game. It's like 70 quid, give or take. I'm not prepared to pay it. So when he said he could put it on here for me, delighted. I've played it. What a great game Spike Out is. I'm just gutted I never bought it because I really like the physical of it now. Having played it, it's fantastic. Proper sort of Sega arcade 3D Streets of Rage in effect. Real quality game, and it's much, I don't know, I'd got my visions in my mind of it being kind of dark and grainy and, you know, unlike Sega. But what I've played of it so far, it's really bright, colourful, like a traditional Sega arcade game. And it feels very much like an arcade game because action takes place in quite short bursts before you move from one area to another. Really, really good. I might have to get the physical, you know. It's impressed me that much. And it's the one game I feel I'm missing from my physical Xbox collection. Because it's annoying. You know, it's like GTI Club when I wanted that on the Wii, you know, and it was the one thing I was missing from my Wii collection. And I didn't want to pay the money, but in the end, I got lucky and I got one slightly cheaper than they go for, and, you know, I got it. So, you know, I really want to get this Spike Out now, I've got to say. And that kind, going back to the pink Xbox Hayden did for me a few weeks ago now, a couple of months even, I don't know, time goes by that fast. That sort of threw me down the Xbox rabbit hole, in effect, as in to sort of make sure I'd got all the games I wanted in the collection that were available, aside from obviously Spike Out. And so I've picked up 3 original Xbox games. Again, we're going back, you know, some of this stuff's ages ago. I'm so far behind. But yeah, this pink Xbox, because it I had modded it, you can make use of the increased display you can get out of an Xbox, and I think is it 720p or something it displays up to anyway. There are a handful of games, about 10 I think, 10, 12, something like that, which make use of this enhanced display. One of them being Soul Calibur 2, which I thought I'd got, and it turns out I hadn't, because I've always had the GameCube version. So to my amazement, I hadn't got this. So I had to pick up Soul Calibur 2 on the Xbox purely to try it in this, I think it's 720p or 780i, something like that anyway. It's supposed to look awesome. Again, I've not got round to trying it. And then this one I've had before, but I think I had it on the GameCube again. But when the GameCube collection, sort of the PAL collection went, this went along with it, and I've never re-bought it, and I've always intended to. So anyway, because I was down this rabbit hole of the Xbox, I finally got back Dragon's Lair 3D. I love the original arcade game. I mean, it's ridiculously hard. You know, I mean, it's just interactive cartoon, isn't it? I've never got very far, but I love the style and the, you know, the feel and sound of it. It's fantastic. Got one of the best attract modes of all arcade games, in my opinion. Anyway, this 3D version I've not played in years, but I do remember it being reasonably good on the GameCube. So, like I say, I've always wanted it ever since I sold it on the Xbox. So finally we've got it. Again, I've not played it. And then the last one, this again is one, I'm not sure I've ever played this, if I'm honest with you. I had the original, and I've still got the original one on the Dreamcast, but I don't think, or at least I can't remember ever owning this. And Tony Pfizer 2, he regularly mentions this as one of his favourite games of all time. I think it might be his actual favourite game of all time, actually. So anyway, Capcom vs SNK 2. This was what I remember years ago. I was looking to get this on the GameCube because it was at a time I bought a GameCube arcade stick and there was no games that really made use of it, and I was looking for this simply to use with this arcade stick I'd got, but I never bought it. I subsequently got rid of the arcade stick because it's completely pointless on a GameCube, and I'd never bought it since. So I finally got myself Capcom vs SNK 2. I'm sure it's awesome, but again, I've not played it. Right, speaking of rabbit holes, I've been down another one in recent weeks and months. One which many people are down, but I've kind of resisted. And I don't know why really, but it's kind of always, I love them to look at, but I've never felt the urge to sort of jump in, if you like. But anyway, I've gone down the vinyl hole, and I've got to say I'm loving it. It's just that feeling of putting the record on the turntable and moving that needle across, and then you hear the slight crackle of when the needle hits the record before the music starts. Oh, it's just epically nostalgic. Fantastic. I'm having the whale of a time going around charity shops buying up sort of old records because I've got a wide range of musical tastes, and I don't like any modern stuff. Who does? So I'm managing to find quite a lot, because I like really old stuff, and I'm managing to find quite a lot in charity shops for like £1 each or whatever. Absolute bargain. So I've already built up a sizable collection without spending hardly any money. I've also managed to get some old ones off my mum, because she's got a stash of sort of my parents' records going back to way back when, but she hasn't got a record player anymore, so I've had some from there, plus with these what I found in the charity shops. I've bought 1 or 2 new ones. Absolutely loving it. Anyway, waffling on. There's also data discs, isn't there? Now, obviously, I've had a data disc before, when I didn't have a record player, and I just bought it because I liked it. But subsequently, I sold it because I thought, what's the point? And I mean, they are awesome. They look, if you've got somewhere to display them, the artwork on them, fantastic. I haven't. I'm buying them purely to listen to. So consequently, I'm not bothered about stuff, just for the artwork, if you know what I mean. I'm buying stuff because I like the music in particular. So for me, there are 3 iconic games with amazing soundtracks. And so I had to get Streets of Rage. I mean, magnificent. And I mean, the artwork on these, I totally get people who've got a full set of these. They look sensational. I'm happy with the ones I've got. I'm not looking to get any more. But I had to get that Streets of Rage. And then obviously had to get Streets of Rage 2 as well. I mean, again, sensational artwork. And you know, is it the best music ever in games? You couldn't argue against it, could you? I possibly could, because I've got Outrun back. This is the one I had in the first place and sold when I hadn't got a record player, so I had to get this back. One of the reasons I sold this was I don't think this is particularly nice. You know, I think they could have done a lot more with the artwork on this. Frankly, I think it's dull. I think it's a bit shit, if I'm honest. But it's the music, isn't it? The music, this is the best game music ever created. I just think the sleeve itself is crap. You can change this middle section out, but I mean, this is the best one. You know, the others are like different colour sky. I mean, why is it not the iconic start line picture instead of this bollocks? Honest, what the fuck were they thinking? Anyway, enough of that. That's all the vinyl. I shan't mention vinyl on the channel ever again, I don't imagine. Right, because I'm not looking for any game soundtracks. Not for me, I don't think. Right, we're on to some older stuff now. This is sort of, well, there's quite a bit of decent retro in here, I would say. We've got one PSP game to show today. Now this, I was aware of it, but I wasn't looking to buy it because it's quite expensive. And I just stumbled across this, and it was ridiculously cheap. And I think it was on an auction, if I remember. I'm sure it was on an auction. And it's one of them, you know, you watch it, you think that's bound to go up. But this never did. And I thought, you know, I bidded at the last minute. And you think, well, somebody else is going to outbid me, you know, it's going to go up in price. But it didn't. And I don't know why. I seem to remember the listing wasn't particularly good. And I don't think they knew what they had. Or they just couldn't be asked to list it properly. Something along that line. Anyway, we've got Sengoku Aces, which, if you're unfamiliar, is a horizontal shooter. Psycho game. And I think this is like an Asian Hong Kong version. I can't remember now if there's a Japanese version or not. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Awesome to have this. I'm sure. Again, this has been a while, and you know the old grey matter has forgot. But I'm sure it's around 60, 70 quid game, usually, and I'm sure it was less than 20 quid. It was an absolute bargain anyway. So, and it's complete. So, you know, sometimes you just drop on, don't you? And I did with this. So, didn't think I'd own it, if I'm honest, but I do. And what a bargain. So I've chuffed with that. Obviously, I've not played that either. Right, next up, we've got a couple of Wii U titles. I know, crazy. I've had a full set. What am I buying Wii U titles for? But a few weeks ago, whenever it was, I put out a video of the Wii U games I'd got left that I felt were worth owning and keeping in your collection, rather than, you know, the excess amount of absolute garbage that is on it. You know, there's, I can't remember how many I kept, 15 or something, which were absolute, you know, bangers. But there were a couple, after having done that video, which I thought to myself, I think you should have kept them. So anyway, I've repurchased Star Fox Zero. Now the reason I'd sold this in the first place was because I had the big box version with Star Fox Guard and the steel tin, and it was sealed, so I sold that. Hence I hadn't got the game, so I've just bought the standalone game back, which, to be honest, from memory, because mine was sealed, I don't think I'd ever played this. Surprise, surprise. So I've bought this, and I have installed it and had a very brief go, and it does seem rather good, this. So finally I can play Star Fox Zero. And then the other one I've got is Fast Racing Neo. Now I've got a very checkered sort of history with this game. It's a fantastic game. Like I've said on that Switch 2 video, you know, it's a magnificent game on the Switch 2, as is this one, as is the original Switch one. This is the first one in the series, obviously. But the reason I say I've got a checkered history with this is because when I had my full set, when I bought it then, there are two variants of this. You've got the sort of proper PAL version, like this one, and the much more common one is the Australian PAL, which has got the massive square Australian. Is it square? No, that's German. The Australian's the larger rectangular age rating. It's the only difference. But it just bugged me. I always wanted the PAL version. Because I seem to remember at the very beginning, I didn't actually realise there was a PAL version because they all seemed the Australian one. And like I said, I'd got the Australian one, and then I sold it to get the PAL one, which I then ordered. I ordered a PAL one on the pictures, and then what they sent me was another Australian one, so I was now further forward. And then I think I did that again, ordered one that was supposedly PAL and it came Australian. So I'd never had the PAL one. I tried to get it twice and I hadn't got it. So then when I got round to, and I sold the Australian one when I sold off, 90% of my Wii U stuff. So I hadn't got it when I did that Switch video, Wii U video. So I thought, right, I'm going to have another attempt at getting the PAL version. So obviously CEX sell this, and there just happened to be one in a store that wasn't that far I could get to reasonably easily. So I thought, right, I'd got a slight amount of credit, as I remember. Had I? It doesn't matter. Anyway, I went to this store, and it was on the shelf. Wasn't amazing condition, but I think there was 4 in the country at the time. So I bought it anyway. Look, the sleeve was a bit tatty. Aside from that, everything else looked alright. So anyway, I bought it, got it home, cleaned it up, as you do. Everything needs cleaning in CEX. Put it in the machine, didn't work. I thought, what the fuck? What is it with this game? So I thought, I'm going to have to take it back, obviously, which I did. And I just had a credit note for it. I thought I could order one offline because all the others were miles away. I could order another one online, but it's going to cost me £3 postage. God knows what will turn up. So anyway, I ended up buying a disc only. And before I took the faulty one back, I photocopied on photo paper. I photocopied the sleeve. So now I've got myself it'll do. I've got a photocopy of the PAL sleeve, and I've got the disc because there's no manual with this. It's just leaflets and the disc. So I'm not trying any harder. I've tried at least 3 times to try and get this PAL version without success. So this will do. And it's because I've copied the actual cover on photo paper. I think it looks reasonably good actually, and it's possibly in better nick because it's a new print. It's probably in better nick than the actual original one I took back to CEX. Anyway, so I finally got Fast Racing Neo into the collection. And just as a side note, a couple of weeks later, because I took that game back to a branch, not the branch I bought it from. I took it back to a more local one. And a couple of weeks had passed and I went back to this other shop, the original shop that had it in the first place, and I noticed the same game was back on the shelf. So obviously CEX, wherever you take it back to, they obviously send it back to the original store. But I've returned it as faulty, yet they've still put it on the shelf for some other poor sod to buy, knowing it's faulty. So, you know, what the hell is going on there? Crazy, you know. And it was definitely the exact same copy, because it was, you know, it had the same damaged sleeve that I bought and returned. So 100% it's the same copy I returned faulty, and it's on the shelf in CEX. Well, as of last week anyway. It might still be there, I don't know. Anyway, enough of that. Right, we've now got, actually, what should we do here? This is going to be a long video. Sorry, we're waffling on here. Right, maybe we'll do these two. Now, these came about thanks to Retro Gaming Langers. Well, a couple of months ago now, probably. He put out a Contra video, and cracking video. Go check it out if you haven't. I've mentioned it before in I can't remember why. I've definitely mentioned this video before. It made me buy something else. Anyway, these are the other two things it's made me buy. I was aware of them, and that just passed me by at the time. Probably wouldn't have been something I was interested in. And I've seen them since, but they're not the cheapest of games. And it's the two PS2 Contra games. Shattered Soldier and Neo Contra. Like I say, they're quite pricey. Well, it depends on your context. To me, PS2 games, they're fairly cheap. You know, if you're paying more than a tenner for a PS2 game, it seems quite expensive to me. I know times are changing and it's getting older, and, you know, prices are going to increase. I get that, but, you know, these are more your 30 to 50 quid games, I think. So for me, that's too much for a PS2 game. I forget which way around. One's more expensive than the other. I think the one's like 30 quid, the one's like 50, 60 quid. But which way around it is, I've forgotten. Anyway, like I say, and plus I don't really want PAL versions, you know, because if you know, you know. So I'm not sure if there is a Japanese. There probably is. I've never seen one anyway, or I've never sort of seen one physically, you know, in front of me. I'm sure. I think there is. I'm sure I've seen it on, you know, online for sale. Anyway, I've managed to find that these two are American versions. And I've got these cheap. The reason being, they were disc only, and I thought, I'm satisfied with that. So I bought these two disc only, really quite cheap in comparison with the full price. I've stuck them in like genuine PS2 boxes, printed out my own covers, real nice quality. They look proper on the shelf. So I'm delighted to have these. I've only had a brief play on both, and they do both seem really quite good. The one I felt was better than, I think the one is more 3D based and the one is more 2D based, but I can't remember which way around it is. Or even the 3D one I felt was alright. If I get chance, I'll put some footage up while I'm talking about these two here, so you can see the difference. But like I say, it's hard to tell off the box. I would say, if I was guessing, I would, from the images on the box, I think it's Shattered Soldier that's 2D, and I think Neo Contra is 3D. That's how it looks on the box if I was to guess. But like I say, I'm not crazy about 3D stuff. You know, I much prefer 2D. But I'm sure I remember it being alright. But anyway, both fantastic additions to the collection. And thankfully I can play these because I've got an American PS3, which obviously plays, and it's, you know, it's an early one, so it plays PS2 and 1. So really I was chuffed with that result. Right, next up we've got a Saturn game. Now, I couldn't tell you the last time I bought a Saturn game. And I got, this was off Jace at Retro Games. And it was a bargain basement buy. Based on condition, I think. Anyway, we've got Road Rash, and a PAL game, I know. I don't buy PAL games. But it's much easier to get Road Rash PAL than it is in like an import format. And I did have this when it, you know, back in the day when it came out. I had it on the Saturn, but I've never had it since. You know, the 3DO version, that's the pinnacle. But it's, you know, it's almost as good on the PS1 and Saturn. And I've had the PS1 version for years, and I've often thought I'd quite like to get the Saturn one back. And then when I saw Jace had listed this, it was cheap. The disc ain't great, I've got to say. You know, hence why it was in the bargain basement. But for the price I've paid, bargain. Clues in the title. It was a bargain. I'm more than happy with it. It's fantastic. The box is cleaned up really rather well. You know, it looks really good, and it's complete. You know, I hate these EA boxes on the Saturn. Absolute crap. And I mean, the disc ain't. It's not terrible. It's just got lots of light. I don't think you can even see them on there. You know, it looks. There's nothing bad. There's just lots of light scratches. So, you know, I can't remember what it was, but it might have been, I don't know, 5-10 quid. Absolute bargain. So anyway, thank you, Jace. Legend. Jace in Japan season 2 is upcoming. Whatever you do, if you're into your retro and you like Japanese stuff, watch Jace in Japan upcoming series. It starts October. It's going to be magnificent. The first series was brilliant. And just watch Jace every week because he's Mr. Entertainer. So anyway, Road Rash on the Saturn. Right, we get in there. We've got a couple of Switch titles to show. I've had these a while as well. And we've got the 2 Castlevania collections. The Advanced Collection and the, what is it, the Dominus Collection or Anniversary Collection. Japanese, obviously. You've got on here, I think, the 3 NES games, the SNES game. Is it Bloodlines? I think Vampire Killer off the SNES. Is it Kid Dracula off the Famicom? Fantastic collection. Still sealed, obviously. I mean, I've got access to play most of those, to be honest, on the original form. So, am I actually going to play that? I don't know, but it's a nice collection to have, so I had to have it. This, however, is a different matter, because I'm not a handheld collector at all. Don't have hardly any. I've got absolutely no Game Boy Advance, so this is the Game Boy Advance games, I think. Circle of the Moon, what is it? Harmony of Dissonance and Aria of Sorrow or something. Anyway, fantastic collection. I've never played any of those. Again, it's sealed. At some point I will get to them, but this kind of opened up a Castlevania rabbit hole, because I've never been mad into Castlevania, if I'm honest. The only one I ever really played a bit of was the SNES game, you know, way back in the day, in the 90s. And, you know, what I played, which I thought was great, you know, really good game, really, really good. But it was just at a time when I was only playing races, really. And so it kind of, I always knew it was quality. It was just something, I'll get to that one day. 30 years later, we're still waiting to get to it. But that said, you know, I've owned it on the Super Nintendo for, I dread to think, 20 years. I've had the cartridge for the Super Nintendo, and I've hardly ever, you know, beyond trying to make sure it worked, I don't think I've ever put it in the machine. Like I say, however, those Switch releases have kind of opened up the Castlevania rabbit hole. So there will be more Castlevania to come in upcoming episodes, because I'm starting to discover what a fantastic series it really is. Anyway, we'll move on to the NES or Famicom, if you like. And the first thing I've got to show is this, which is a basic multicart for the Famicom, bought off AliExpress, 153 in one. It's had on the list, and it showed quite a decent list of games that were included. So I thought worth taking a chance on, because I think it was around 15 quid, something like that. Cart feels nice. It don't feel particularly, you know, cheap and nasty. It feels like a decent Famicom cartridge. You could choose your colour. I had a nice blue. I didn't do pink, unfortunately. However, my primary reason for buying that was that there were quite a few games on that cartridge that either weren't released on the Famicom and were actually NES games, or there were games that were seriously expensive on the Famicom, and way beyond what I would ever consider paying. Samurai Pizza Cats being one of them. I mean, that's a crazy price game, and it's on there. So for 15 quid, you can play Samurai Pizza Cats on your Famicom. So it was a no-brainer just to play that. But however, like I say, there's no like crap on that. That's 150 games. They're proper NES games, and there is some real, you know, there's some good stuff on it, and it ain't just like the fodder. It's some of the good stuff is on it. So, you know, thoroughly recommend that if you've got a Famicom, well worth buying. However, like I say, some of them had got the NES games on it that weren't available on the Famicom, and that kind of threw me down the NES sort of US exclusive rabbit hole, honestly. Which I alluded to this in my last pickups video, because I showed a few of the NES games I've been buying, and I've bought quite a, well, not that many, just the ones I wanted. Anyway, one of the ones on that multicart was Jackal. Now this game is fantastic. It's Konami, obviously, and it's kind of it's a shooter based in a Jeep, basically. Sort of an army based, like Commando, really, and you're in a Jeep. This is so good, really, really good, honestly. As soon as I played it on that multicart, I thought, oh God, I need the proper cart of this. And so, there we are. And the biggest trouble with American NES carts is that they're in short supply in this country. Obviously, they probably weren't shipped over in vast quantities, because there was no way I was aware of playing American NES carts on a PAL NES. I was into importing, and I didn't know a way how you could do it. So outside of having an American NES, which again at the time I'd never seen one in this country, so I can imagine not many American NES carts ever came over here, hence why there's not now many on eBay. If there's just for argument's sake, there's 5,000 NES PAL games on eBay, there might be like 300 or 400, probably not that many American ones. There aren't many, and a lot of them are the stuff I've got no interest in. So my point being, most of these American NES carts I've bought, I've had to just buy them from America, because I I can't be arsed waiting on the off chance it might come up in the UK. So I've just ordered them from America, you know, and I've found a couple of decent sellers in America, which I've bought a few off. So it's worked out all right in the end, really. So if I ever discover any more, I'll just look for what these sellers are selling. And I've bought a few off Jace again at Retro Games. He got a few that I was interested in. Anyway, I think this one was off Jace actually. Going back to the Castlevania rabbit hole, of course, Castlevania. Because this, if I've got, is this the one that's Famicom disc? I think one of them's Famicom disc, and it doesn't matter anyway. Castlevania. Had a brief go on this. I mean, this does seem really good. I can understand why, you know. Like I say, I'd only played the SNES one. I'd never ever played the NES versions up until buying these. And again, they're on that multi-cart. So had to get that. I wonder if the other two will turn up in future episodes. Right, I've only got 3 left. This next one, a game I was fully aware of. I just didn't realise it was on the NES, and we got Spy Hunter. This is in beautiful condition. Really, this is really good. I've never been that bothered about Spy Hunter, if I'm honest. But I don't know, this is really good. It's super hard, don't get me wrong, it's crazy difficult. But it is really well done. Cracking game on the NES, I've got to say. Then again, we've got another shooter, and we've got Section Z. This ain't such good condition, the label's quite worn on this one, but, you know, I'm not bothered. You know, I do like the form of the NES carts, cart only stacked up like that. Yeah, this is horizontal shooter, if I got the right one, I think. Quite different to the arcade game, I seem to remember this one. But decent. Capcom game as well. You know, I did think about the Capcom sort of subset on the NES, but, you know, craziness. I'm not doing it. Anyway, that's Section Z. And then the last one is an absolute belter. I love this game, and this is another amazing version. And we've got Jace. Obviously, it's one of these sort of Konami games that aren't Konami games, because it's on the Ultra label. It's in nice condition, and again, I mean, Jace is a classic. It's awesome on everything, you know, the 2600, the ColecoVision, whatever. This is equally brilliant as well. Chuffed to have this. Not the cheapest of games, as I remember this one. But anyway, thought we'd end on an absolute cracker. You can't go wrong with Jace. It's amazing. There we go. Sorry to dragged on today. Let me know what you think in the comments. There's plenty more to come. I've got so far behind, it's untrue. So little time to play anything. But, you know, hopefully, less outside stuff to do now. Might have a bit more time to play stuff. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon. Sayonara.